Rohith, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Doing good. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Um, Rohit, there's exciting work that you're doing, right? And the fact that there's I think COVID has brought in a very unique kind of an opportunity, right? I think where India has now a possibility and will largely, will play a larger role, right, in the global economy. And I think language is going to become the first piece that will become very, very important for us to kind of go out and participate, right? And I think that's essentially what your area focuses, right? To ensure that many, many Indians, right from their early ages to even the ones who are sort of growing up, start speaking good English, right? And of course, from there you will expand into a bunch of other things, right? But that's your core focus area, right? Is that a correct way of looking at it, or would you want
Yes,
to say
it
different?
is. So that is actually our ultimate vision
Sure.
to upskill people with the right language skills from all the
Right.
age, to all age groups. However, right now we are focused on one specific target set of audience,
Right.
and those are the age group is between 21 to 45, and they're working professionals, basically in
Wonderful.
their early and mid-career working professionals.
Wonderful. So,
So we start
while
from
we
there.
do that, Rohit, a quick round of introduction will be helpful, and then we dive into the Inspira story.
Sure, sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. So as you all know, my name is Rohith, Rohith Namboothiri, and I'm the founder and CEO of Inspira. So
Right.
Inspira is basically an online live English language and soft skills training
Right.
platform that lets you instantly connect with a trainer anytime you want. And not just that, you get a tangible outcome in the form of either better job opportunities or study, work, or settle abroad, assistance at the end of the course.
Mhm.
To talk about me, I've been a trainer for almost like 4 to 5 years. I have
Wonderful.
worked with a lot of companies as well as a trainer, trained more than 3,000 plus students in my entire lifetime. Before that, I had my own venture. To be honest, I started when I was 15 years old. My first
Right.
company.
Wonderful.
Uh, it was a web development agency to just support a few of my extra stuffs
Right.
as a side income. At that time, that is what you need.
Right.
And I've been a programmer also all my life. No, I do
Very
not
good.
have any formal education in terms of like technology, BTech, or anything of that sort. But
Right.
I started developing websites when I was 8 years old.
Mhm.
Became an ethical hacker when I was 10. Started working on freelance projects throughout my 12, 13, 14, and
Wonderful.
that's why I started my company when I was
Right.
15. And that started off my entrepreneurial journey, to be honest.
Wonderful, Rohit. And I think while I want to sort of believe that Inspira is new, what I kind of sense in what you're telling me is that the seeds were essentially planted way early, right? And I think this is just a different manifestation of what you're doing, right?
True.
But I think it's phenomenal to have you with us, Rohit. And I think this is a very pertinent conversation, right? Especially around the time where we are. And like I said, right, COVID has kind of made us look at markets in a very different way, right? We've largely been an inward-looking economy, and all of a sudden now that this entire lag that was there between say economy A and economy B is kind of shrinking, right? I think this is a massive possibility, right? And today when we talk about education circuit, today we talk about businesses. I think everybody's kind of looking outside, right? Export is going to be a big play for us, right? And I think so is the government. Government's emphasis, right, on ensuring that we are in that zone and stuff like that, right? In that context, language becomes very, very critical, right? Help us understand, right? How large is the market, right? What are the kind of demographics that you're catering to right now? I mean, are you largely sort of designed for business owners? Are you designed for working professionals? What's the area of focus for Inspire in the current form and way? Who are the people you are kind of training? And what's their element of influence, right? Which motivates them to take up these programs that you offer.
Sure, sure. So to talk about the market, like you said, it is booming since the pandemic had struck, especially the language learning industry. So in
Mhm.
India alone, language learning, especially English language learning, is a $4 billion market, which
Right,
is growing at like 17% CAGR and expected to
right,
touch 10 billion in the next
right,
4 to 5 years. But right now, because of the pandemic, I'm sure if you do a resurvey, you will find the numbers growing again. So the
right,
CAGR would be really high because of the huge demand that is there.
right,
And uh, English language learning on the whole, on a global level, it's a $55 billion industry.
right,
It's just 4 billion is just from India, but that doesn't mean that that's the end of it.
right,
And like you said, our target users are basically, I mean, this 4 billion in India covers everybody, starting from the kids to the adult age group. But Inspira, we have a specific target audience in mind, and that's where we started off with it. So,
Okay.
as mentioned earlier, our specific target audience are early and mid-career working professionals between the age 21 and 45.
Right.
So the reason why we started off with this, because the kind of offerings that Inspira does or provide, it's directly aligned with this particular audience itself, or
Okay.
only them. It
Right.
works out only for them in the initial stages.
Right.
And that itself, that particular audience itself is so huge, not just in India, but Middle East, Southeast Pacific, Latin America, and European countries as well. So it's a huge market, even if it's a niche. So that's what we focus on.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Rohit, but what is the audience that you are selling to, right? Is looking for, right? Where is that key gap? Are they not able to complete their transactions? Is there an ability or lack of ability to comprehend? Where is the gap?
No.
What's the gap?
Yeah.
Why
So
are they why are they
the basic
adopting?
gap is time flexibility, to be honest.
Okay.
So early and mid-career working professionals, especially in India, as soon as you get your first job, the entire weight of the family is on your shoulders, right? And it's either too late when you realize that there is a need for language strengthening to advance in your career. But due to the hectic work schedule and other family commitments, you simply cannot find time to dedicate, join a class at its fixed time at a fixed, schedule. It's simply impossible. You suddenly have an overtime work or a meeting coming up. Especially these days, it's online. Suddenly, your boss would call and you have an online meeting.
Right.
So for them, time flexibility is of real importance. I mean, they cannot commit a time. So that's where Inspira comes in. We give them total time flexibility. You can learn according to your convenience. Literally, you can decide 5 minutes before, and a trainer would be there for you waiting.
Right.
So when we started offering these particular stuff, and it's individual, not a group at all. So that is another advantage for them, because these working professionals, they cannot simply sit in a group with different people of different age group.
Right.
And they're either intimidated to ask questions, or they simply cannot get that concentration because it's a group and they have other things going on in their mind.
Right.
So we bombarded them with the perfect solution, or the kind of like painkiller, you should say. Give them total time flexibility, give them the individual coaching that is just one-to-one training, and something that is customized just for you, so that an offer that you cannot refuse. So that's the idea that we're going behind.
Interesting. Very interesting. Right. Also, test prep is something which is, where English is becoming very, very relevant, right? And I think, SAT has become very important. IELTS has become very important. GMAT has become very, very important, right? And,
yes.
And given the ecosystem that we come from, right, we have language issues, right? And like you said, right, we have, the way we speak our native languages, right, are, there's an issue, right, in terms of our adaptability of English, right? How are you looking at those areas, right? For example, SAT, GMAT, IELTS. How are you looking at those those markets, right? They could be small in size, but they're very, very interesting and growing markets.
They're evergreen, basically, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we are targeting. We do have IELTS as part of our offering as well. So we combine the language and IELTS together as a package there. So IELTS is a huge market. In 2019, I believe almost 10 lakhs or 11 lakhs people from India wrote IELTS examination, and so I mean the majority of the people, if they're planning to write IELTS, that means they're going to a native English-speaking country. They're migrating there either for study or work purpose. So the kind of like migration has really grown almost like 141% if you compare it from the data from 1980s. And year on year, IELTS market itself is growing 30%.
Right.
So just imagine the kind of like scope that you'd be having in the future.
Absolutely.
And for that, in order to get a good score in IELTS or any other language proficiency test like TOEFL, PTE, etc., you need to have a very good grip on the language skills. So Indians basically, we understand English, to be honest. I mean, even the most people from the Tier 3 or the most backward society can also understand few words because it's part of your language these days. I'm sure that, if you in your mother tongue itself, if it's a Hindi or any other language, you cannot say a single sentence these days without having at least one English word.
Right. You're right.
Let's say that, can you please switch on the fan? Even if it is Malayalam, you say that fan is an English word. Right? So English is so much part of your culture and your life these days. But the problem is something called as mother tongue influence.
Right.
Every language has got this mother tongue influence that is kind of like ruining it. And when you realize that you have this particular problem, you get too conscious on the grammatical aspect, which is absolutely not required at all.
Right.
So that consciousness and everything is actually ruining your language development skills. So IELTS is definitely testing your language, but or let it be PT or even TOEFL, the examiners who are doing, monitoring you or assessing you, they know that you are an Indian. So
Right.
they're not like looking for an American or a British kind of like accent or language
Right.
skills from you. They're not expecting that simply. So just be grammatically good, pronounce in a very decent way, understand the pronunciation, and you're good to go. And the writing skill, everything. So that's why we've clubbed it together. Give these professionals the painkiller, basically, like I mentioned.
Very interesting. Because, I often tell this to my daughter, right? And she's 9 and she's in class 4, right? And like every other kid, right? She has her own fears with maths, right? And when I look at maths, when I look at what she's doing, right? And my sort of, I go back to her and tell her that this is English, right? If you get it right, if you get it right in English, right, you'll be able to solve it, right? And I think that's what also you are highlighting in the process, right?
That's true.
I think it's become so ingrained in everything that we're doing, right? It's just that we've not, because of variety of issues and aspects. It's just that the comfort is not really happening. It's coming together, right? But I think with a little bit of a push, a little bit of a nudge, right, a little bit of hand holding, it is something that that can become so much more ubiquitous, right? Rohit, I have my next question essentially is, which is also very interesting in a sense, right? Is how large is the market, right? Of course, we see many priority areas. We've spoken about it, right? But how large is the market, right? Is this like half of India, which is your market? What's your market like, right? When you're
Yeah.
how are you prioritizing?
So to be honest, there are about 450 million working youth in India.
Right,
But the major problem is that 80 to 90% of them are from the unorganized sector.
right,
So if you look at the professionals, it's hardly like 46 million or 50 million under that.
right.
And the youth, especially between 21 and 45, is like probably around 26 lakhs to 30 lakhs, between somewhere between that.
Right.
So it looks very small, but it's growing. I mean, every year somebody is entering this market age group and somebody is leaving this age group as well. Right? Somebody who enters this 21 age group, they've got like another 15 years to be part of our age group as well.
Right.
So it's kind of like an increasing evergreen market. And like I said, India is not just the market that we have. We do have even existing students from Middle East and Southeast Pacific as well. But basically, this age group or this particular target is applicable in every country. Every country has got a working professional between age 21 and 45.
Right.
And until unless you're not from a native language English-speaking country, language is definitely going to be a challenge for you there.
Very
So
interesting.
just imagine, an automobile engineer from Thailand wants to work in Canada or England.
Right.
So language is definitely going to be a barrier there.
I understand.
So that's why I said. So the market is kind of like huge if you look at it in a very conscious way. But in India, yeah, right now it is like around 45 million is our, the precise market size.
Interesting. I think that's still a sizable market, right? I think anything
Yes,
that you do in India it's not small, right? I think there is a reasonable
very
market.
true.
I'm saying, what's the team construct, right? How do you go about doing this, right? Is this in-house content that you're creating? Do you have many curators on the panel, right? How are you doing it, right?
Sure.
How are you maintaining the delivery? How are you ensuring some of those critical, distribution and delivery side aspects?
Sure. So when we started Inspira, it was not a technology platform earlier. So it
Right.
was a very localized kind of like an institute because
Sure.
even though at the end of the day, I wanted to go digital global, but I didn't
Mhm.
have the guts to it because education industry was something new to me. And having those entrepreneurial kind of like mindset,
Right.
I'm a big risk taker, but it has to be a sensible risk.
Right.
Tomorrow if you decide you want to enter the medical industry, you just cannot do that. You need to have some kind of like knowledge in that.
Right.
So what I did was I took my time, studied this market in detail
Mhm.
by starting a very localized approach.
Right.
And today, what Inspira is or has become is based on whatever we learned in our past. So
Right.
to answer your question, basically it is a mix of psychology as well as technology as well as the operational aspect of it.
Interesting.
From an operational aspect, definitely do have our own content. So we have our content developers to create the curriculum, basically
Right.
professional educators.
Mhm.
They create the modules, and that's done in-house because we do not outsource anything at all.
Right.
So every content is created by us, and we maintain standardized curriculum throughout our program.
Mhm.
Now, the second aspect is delivery aspect of it. So
Mhm.
delivery, there are again three major pain points that we are solving here. One is definitely the flexibility is a big issue for the target audience that we are catering to. They need
Mhm.
to have the total time flexibility. It could be 5 p.m.
Mhm.
today, it could be 7 p.m. tomorrow, it could be 9 p.m. the day after.
Mhm.
Even though these people have no idea that there is an option like this. They go for other organizations where they fix a time. But what happens at the end of the day is that they miss out a lot of sessions because of these last minute changes. So we understood that pain point. So psychology plays there. The second one is something that they're missing today is an opportunity to interact with multiple people. Right. So the more you interact with multiple people, the better you become, or better you learn the language. That is, everybody knows that. But unfortunately, none of the educational institutions or educational organizations offer that. You have one trainer throughout your course. You speak with just that particular person. And after a while, you just get so used to that, you don't even realize that you're not learning at all. So it's like these days you get food in 5 minutes at your doorstep. The entire private banking sector reaches your home for banking transactions. The education in this day is like still 100 years old. Nothing has improved there. Even though you say technology, the structure of education is still the same. So we understood that. And the third one is basically giving them everything as a package. Right. So that's basically what we did. We gave them the time flexibility and opportunity to interact with multiple trainers, and solving the third one, so I forgot to mention, is the psychology of continuity issue. If I get a new trainer every time, how will I understand? How will I build rapport? I mean, with just one single trainer itself, they're not able to do that. But with multiple trainers, they're still confused. How are they able to do it? So in order to tackle these issues, we basically use the help of technology. So we have an artificial intelligence system where we connect you to a trainer who's likely to build rapport with you. So based on your region, language, age group, and lots of other parameters. So the trainer you get connected to will have at least one common similarity between you and the trainer, so that you'll have an engaging conversation. And these trainers are sourced from different parts of the country. They're basically contract basis. They get paid on an hourly basis. But these trainers, they are trained on our curriculum. They undergo like 30 to 40 hours of grueling training from our senior team members. And only if they get approved, they'll be put into training, and they'll be allowed to train the students or the users, basically.
Very interesting.
So that's how we maintain consistent curriculum throughout. The quality is maintained and continuity issue, thanks to the backend system that we have. Every trainer gets access to what happened in the previous session, including things like what you are not supposed to talk to the students. So in detail, everything is mentioned.
So, what is the current what is the current clientele, right? How many people are you catering to? How many students are you catering to, right?
So the online version that we're talking about was launched in like late September 2020 only. So there was a lot of shift that was happening. So far we have 2,550 students, paid users on a platform that are either completed or taking course at the moment. And we have 160 trainers across India.
Oh, wonderful. And this is all purely happening online, right? Is there an aspiration to go offline as well? Because
no, we do not have at all. I mean, at the end of the day, it was all digital. That was a vision when we started Inzpira, and finally happened. So no turning back. This is the right path to go.
Interesting. I have a question on the physical aspect, right? I was about to ask you that, but I think I'm going to weave it into my next question, right? Which is around India to or Bharat, right? Like the way they put it. That is a huge market, right? Also, what has happened is that COVID has kind of fast-tracked the aspiration that, say, for example, Bharat had, right? So given that everybody was locked up, and everybody was just consuming content, right? Which essentially meant that, everybody had the same exposure, right? Irrespective of, I was say, in Trivandrum or in Delhi or in Bangalore, everybody was almost at an equal platform, right? Where the opportunity was the same, the situation was the same, everything pretty much was the same, right? And that kind of decreased the arbitrage that existed between, whatever markets, right? So how is Bharat, right? So, and like I said, right? So Bharat is a hugely aspirational, there is a huge aspiration which is there in Bharat, right? Which is a tier 2 and below India, right? What's your sense of that, right? How is that? And like I said, right, they were now they're exposed to a lot of content, right? Now they're exposed to what's happening in international economy, right? So there's a certain reference point that they have, right? How do you look at that as an opportunity, right? What's your sense of it, right? Is there something that you're working on which helps you crack that particular market?
Definitely.
So an added question to that is that when you look at many players who've been in the language space, right? Language teaching and skill space. These are people who've had a huge physical delivery system, right? And when you look at these tier 2, tier 3 cities and so on and so forth, right? And that was largely because tier 2 and tier 3 operated in a lack of trust environment, right? For them, touch and feel was very important. They were not as savvy, and And so what's your sense of it, right? While you continue to choose to be digital, right? One, of course, how do you view Bharat as a market? And second, do you think for Bharat, do you need a touch and feel? Is my second question.
Sure. So fantastic question, because this, the pandemic or the kind of like lockdown that India we had
Right.
earlier, uh, like you mentioned, brought everybody together. Like
Sure.
even from the metro city as well as the tier three city, they, for the educational purpose, they had to use their, whatever the technologies that they wanted, or they
Right.
had to use it. So people started donating, the government started helping people. So right now, the kind of like situation that we are having is that the kids or the younger generation, they have access to this technology to an extent, not everybody,
Right.
but a good portion of them already have access to it because of the digital
Mm-hmm.
education that is happening. But still, the kind of like target audience that we are having,
Mm-hmm.
especially in tier 3 or tier 4, even the Bharat you were mentioning about,
Right.
definitely lack of trust is one major problem.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of way that we are trying to mitigate is give them, take off the premium aspect of it and give them exactly what they want, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that they get result out of it.
Right.
So they should be willing to take risk. So
Right.
during this pandemic, what happened is what educational, especially the edutech industry, saw a very big shift, a paradigm shift. To be honest, everybody started going online. Even tuition teachers,
Right.
situated locally, started going online, digital,
Right.
right? You have new edutech ventures coming up where you give these freelancers the opportunity to train online,
Right.
classroom systems. So they do have options, and they do
Right.
have options with a lot of in every price range, starting from the cheapest to the costliest one as well. So uh, getting into their minds and winning their hearts is a big challenge to
Right.
enter this Bharat and the other the sectors that we're talking about. So what we are planning to do is take up this individual training aspect and the premium concept and
Right.
give them as a group approach,
Mm-hmm.
so that would reduce the price. So
Mm-hmm.
pricing is one major factor, especially for these people, Bharat.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not just willing to spend, let's say, 10,000 bucks online.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mind paying that money as installments or anything to somebody. You can actually feel and touch or see or experience. They
Right.
don't mind doing that, but they simply cannot do it online. So one simple example is that Trivandrum or basically Kerala, there are areas which is still falls under the Bharat sector.
Right.
So before launching our online training program, we to survive, basically to get some money or revenue out of it, we sold pre-recorded courses.
Right.
These people from these Bharat sector that we were talking about, they don't mind buying a DVD, but they cannot simply purchase an online course.
Right.
They simply do not trust that. I
Right.
mean, they cannot believe that you're paying and you're seeing something on your mobile screen. They need to touch and feel. So that
Right.
is a big problem. I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
But with the kind of like physical live training that we are doing online, it's kind of like seeing a good shift. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if your kid is learning online, why can't you? I mean, you cannot just say that the online education doesn't work because your kid is actually doing that.
Right.
So there's a psychology aspect to that as well. So there is a shift that is happening, and Inspira is definitely going to tap into that, but not as on a physical level, but using technology itself. So understand their psychology and give them exactly what they want. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
my approach is, or my philosophy is that give your users an experience that and an offer that they cannot refuse.
Right.
Like the Godfather dialogue,
Right.
an offer you cannot refuse, and you can't
Yeah.
refuse. Definitely, they will take it. But the experience
Right.
matters the most.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I like the way you put it, Rohit, and I think I like the I know it's complicated, right? I know there are not very very clear answers, right? I think as you go along, and you possibly sort of start to sort of answer that, right? But Rohit, that brings me back to my question that I wanted to ask you earlier, right? And I'm going to ask you a little more, holistically, right? What's been
So,
your what's been your process of acquisition, right? Customer acquisition, right? Because for every learning and education company or ed tech company, right? I think the biggest challenge has been acquisition, right? I think many models that you look at, everybody is essentially reeling at just about 1% or less than 1% conversion, right? So while there is a huge amount of funding which is pouring in, right, the conversions are still slow. I mean, consumers are still taking a lot of time, right? Is that the case with you as well? What's your customer acquisition process, right? Are
sure.
you also kind of facing the same challenges where the funnels are much larger, much longer? I mean, or is it much faster, right? Because people are very clear this is not something which is that clarity helps people move faster, right? The pricing of the course could be very different, so on and so forth, right? Because this is a horizontal skill, right? This is not a very specific skill. This is more horizontal, right? This is something that you're going to require across the board, right? So what's the customer acquisition process? What's the funnel? What are the funnel timelines, right? And are there other dynamics that are playing in, right, to ensuring that there is better conversion?
Sure. So I can definitely answer that because this is where my experience running a physical institute actually became a boon here, or it came
Right.
as a gift here.
Right.
To be frank, we have got 94% course completion rate.
Right.
So 94% course completion
Oh,
rate is
wonderful.
like very huge. I
Right.
mean, the market standard is like 20 to 25%.
Right.
And if it's a pre-recorded course, it's less than 10%. It's
Mm-hmm.
notorious for that,
Right.
self-paced courses. Despite that, we have 94% or 95% course completion rate. And I'll
Right.
tell you the secret very soon. And the second one is we have 29% conversion rate.
Right.
And our customer acquisition cost is less than 600 rupees.
Right.
And we are growing 30 to 40% month on month.
Wonderful.
Right. So the kind of like dynamics or the metrics or the unit economics comes to play
Right.
based on a lot of factors. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is, like I said, my philosophy about giving users an offer that they cannot refuse.
Mm.
And the second one is understanding the major pain point the industry itself is facing.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing, language or soft skills industry, they never solved initially, or they tried solving it, but not on a huge scale, was a tangible result at the end of the program.
Mm-hmm.
If you join a language institute, uh, after your course, what happens? You feel that, okay, you've learned something, you give them your testimonials and done,
Right.
that's it.
Right.
You go back to your life.
Right.
After a couple of months, you totally forget about what you learned.
Right.
Be it soft skills itself, you go for a personality development or public speaking. After the course, you're like happy, you have that jolt for, let's say, a couple of weeks, and then it dies off.
Right.
But what if you get something out of it at the end of the course? Right. It's just like hitting the gym,
Right.
First few days you go there, and it's from my personal experience, you hit the gym, first few days you go there, you're very happy. But then, slowly the interest goes down. The gym is always there. I'll do it later. I'll go tomorrow.
Right.
But what if somebody told you that, you hit the gym 7 days a week, 1 hour a day, I'll pay you 50,000 bucks.
Right.
The entire dynamics changes.
Right.
So you'll make sure that you go there because you're getting 50,000 out of it. So
right.
that's what we do. We give them a tangible result at the end of the course, either in the form of exploring better job opportunities domestically and internationally, or giving them assistance in studying or working or settling abroad, the documentation process, everything. So you're not just completing the course at Inzpira, but you're getting a lifetime of assistance there, where you can actually put use whatever you learned here. Right. So that psychology is clicking here. We target people who actually are planning to go abroad or planning to change their job. And in India, every 2 to 3 years, every employee changes jobs. Right. So if you could be a student today, and after 3 years, you could come back to me again.
Very interesting.
Right. So giving them an opportunity to explore better job or abroad, settle abroad is a good kind of like package that we are teaching them, we are training them, and we are giving them something out of it. That is working. And when we give them, mixing it with a little bit of offers and psychology over there, the sales tactics basically, that improves the course completion rate as well as the conversion rate.
Interesting. Rohith, where are predominantly the current set of customers coming from, right? Which are the areas, which are the regions which are best performing for you? And I mean, is there a similar reflection in the pipeline, or pipeline is much wider? There could be certain sectors which are not, say, resulting into actual conversion, right? But there is this potential and there's this intention, right? So give me a sense of that.
Sure. So I could say, since we started off in Trivandrum, Kerala, definitely our mother market or the native market is what we would be first focusing on. So right now, definitely we focus mainly on Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bangalore, which is Karnataka. And we have got a very good number of users coming, almost like 43% of them are from these regions. And then is from rest of India scattered across, like we've got people from Punjab, UP, Bihar, Mumbai, everywhere. But again, if you dig deeper into this, if you take the India market on the whole as our user base, it's still 48% only, because almost 55 to 56% of them are Indians settled abroad, especially from Middle East.
Right.
So the reason why there is a almost 55 to 56% Indians settled abroad and not Indians, because they understand the requirement much more, or they know that there is a requirement. Much more, because they're experiencing it. Rather, the Indians, like, okay, I have a job right now. Okay, when I switch job, I'll improve it. Okay, I'll learn right now, but fine. So okay, Diwali is coming up. Let me keep this money for buying some sweets.
Right.
For them, it's do or die. They need to do it right now in order to get that promotion or to get a job, because they've already sacrificed everything and moved abroad.
Right.
So that's where the psychology again plays a lot. So that's why we've got like 55 to 56%
Now
Indians settled
I
abroad.
can weave it back together. I can weave it back together. Very interesting, Rohit. And I think that's a I think especially when you're an early stage startup, right? I think your growth is a function of many hacks, right? And many observations. And I think this is a fair observation, right? In terms of trying to crack it for a consumer, which is which is closer to consumption, right? I think that's always the most difficult part, and I think you've kind of cracked it, right? And my sense is, given that you come from Trivandrum, right? Given you sort of come from the region, where there are many settlers abroad, right? You possibly can sense the pain and the pressure at a much closer level than many other businesses that are sort of offering a similar service, right? But Rohit, that brings me to a very interesting question, right? This is not a business which has very significant moat, like we put it, right? This is something which can have a lot of competition, right? And this is a business which has been done in the past. Right? There have been many players who've been to language training, teaching, right? They've been natural movers in terms of, say, offering better opportunities and so on and so forth, right? And they've had physical infrastructures as well, right? Uh, how do you defend yourself in the process, right? As you go along, right? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you defend yourself, right? Because if you don't, that essentially gets you into a very commoditized zone of
Right.
pricing your product, right? And it just makes you very difficult from a survival standpoint, right? And of course, from a value creation standpoint, and many stakeholders that you have, right? Tell me a little, how do you view that, right? How are you differentiating yourself vis-a-vis a lot of competition that already exists, right? In our the smaller cities, hamlets,
True.
towns, tier two cities, tier one cities, even there are pockets, right? How do you differentiate yourself?
Sure. So first I'll talk about what we have right now as a
Sure.
defending mode, and then I'll tell you like what are
Yeah.
the plans of going this forward, taking
Sure.
this forward. So definitely Inspire is not a lifestyle business.
Mhm.
So we are a tech-enabled, high velocity growth kind of like a startup that we are.
Right.
Like you said, the moat is it's basically a thin line that is
Right.
differentiating what we have as a unique point from others.
Right.
So let's say that the individual coaching. You might ask me, so what? I can do it today. Like we create our own content. So what? Even I can do it today.
Right.
I have a technology that connects you with somebody using artificial intelligence.
Right.
Okay, that is unique, but I can do something similar using my own
Mhm.
code. So, like you said, the moat is kind of like thin. But if you dig deeper into it, you
Mhm.
understand that delivering individual coaching is not simple at all.
Mhm.
Okay? So just imagine that you are a user and you want to learn right now, and you need to
Mhm.
have a trainer available at that point of time also.
Right.
So it's not like a prefixed or schedule, and you don't get to tell your trainers that hey,
Right.
5:30 tomorrow this guy is going to study. So it's
Right.
totally random. So
Right.
the random aspect and figuring out a solution and make sure that you have a trainer at every point of time is a
Mhm.
big operational challenge. But again,
Mhm.
okay, tell me that you can do it, you can solve it. Fine,
Right.
fantastic.
Right.
Then it comes about the data that we have and the kind of like we're using it for the future.
Mhm.
So, like I mentioned, Inspira it's basically high velocity growth company. So
Right.
this is just the beginning of it or the starting
Mhm.
point of Inspira, where to be honest, the organizational funnel's mouth. I could say that it's a
Right.
learning platform. So Inspira is basically having three essential pillars.
Right.
One is a learning platform, the other one is a practice platform, and the other one is outcome platform.
Mhm.
So this is the mouth of the funnel, right? And
Right.
the kind of like defending IP or the moat or from a technology aspect comes into the second and the third pillars,
Right.
where we provide unique training or the platform where you can practice your language. So
Right.
a lot of things are happening in that line. They're using technology, a lot of
Mhm.
plans as well. So that drives the moat and that separates us from the rest of the competition. So these data that we're collecting, I'll give you a small hint about it.
Mhm.
Let's say that you're having a session with a trainer. It's a 60-minute session that's being
Mhm.
recorded so that you can watch it again and again. But
Right.
those are recorded on our servers and our AI models are learning that continuously.
Okay.
So at present, Inspira takes like around 300 or 400 hours of sessions every day.
Right.
And we so far have 55,000 hours of videos with us.
Right.
So just imagine the kind of like data that we have, the value it
Very
provides. It's
interesting.
individual one-to-one training
Right.
between the student and the trainer. A lot of
Right.
questions are being answered. Lots of interactions are happening there. The
Right.
data is like a gold mine there to use in the future.
Right.
So on that angle, we have got a lot of things coming up on our technology side. So that's the
Interesting.
great.
Interesting. Right. One particular piece that you kind of highlighted, right, is this layer of trainers that you created, right? And you highlighted that there's a very rigorous process that you go through, right, in terms of say training them and bringing them to the same pace and stuff like that, right? Now, given that we have a lot of regionality, right, and we have a lot of dialect complexity, all right, and of course we have certain understanding levels as well, right? I mean, in certain for example, social settings, doing A could be right? In a certain social setting, B could be right, and all of that, right? And that's a massive complexity, right? I think it just becomes very difficult to bring people in the same tone and tenor, right? Unlike say mathematics, right, which is a 1 plus 1 is 2, right, and that's universally correct. Okay, in your case, it's particularly difficult, right? How have you solved for that, right? Because a large part of your delivery is dependent on a lot of these trainers, right, that you
True.
have engaged with. How have you solved for that?
Sure. So one thing that we are on a good side as well as on a bad side is we are basically training them on language skills, right? So it's
Right,
not rocket science.
right,
So until and unless it was a coding learning platform, you don't need trainers who teach coding or no
sure,
programming. You just need to speak English very good. So that's the
right,
only requirement we have. You need to be a graduate, should be proficient in the language, and should
right,
have that interest to help others. Then, like you said, the dialect variations like mother tongue influence is
right.
a big factor. So
Uh-huh.
every month we get somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 applications to
Mm-hmm.
join Inspira. But we
Right.
don't need that many people, to be honest. So we have a very sweet ratio of trainer to student thing that is happening here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the entire time in the world to shortlist and select the best of the best people.
Right.
So I mean, even the slightest mother tongue influence could, ruin your entire organization standard. For example, in North India, you say opportunity, whereas
Mm-hmm.
the real pronunciation is opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire India, not just North India or South India, but the entire India pronounce content as content.
Mm-hmm.
Content means happiness. Right?
Right.
What are the contents of the book? You're basically having what are the happiness that the book is having? The
Right.
entire meaning changes, right? So you need to identify those people, correct them during the training period itself,
Right.
align them with the right pronunciation, basically neutralize their mother tongue influence.
Right.
So these trainers are getting free coaching from our side,
Right.
but they are on a contract to deliver as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, uh, finding trainers is not a big problem. Finding
Right.
quality trainers is challenging, but not a big problem at all so far. So training them is it's a big. I can't say it's a problem. It's a challenge because everybody should be
Mm-hmm.
on the same page. So
Right.
managing that time, because these are not full-time trainers or permanent
Right.
people. They have their other job and other work. It's just a side
Right.
gig for them.
Right.
So managing the time and scheduling it is a big thing. But you incentivize them in the right way, not just in terms of money, but in other forms as well,
Right.
and motivate them to be part of Inspira. So at Inspira, we are not like considering anybody's employees. We are all family members. So
Right.
you're joining Inspira family member, once a family member, always a family member.
Right.
That kind of like psychology we are playing here. That's a culture that we maintain here. So bring everything together. The trainers are kind of like staying with us, sticking with
Right.
us, continuing with their program and
Right.
delivering effectively. So
Wonderful.
that's how we manage.
Wonderful, Rohit. I think that's an interesting one, right? Rohit, I mean, this is way towards the end of the conversation, right? What are the next 2 years like, right? What is keeping you awake? What is keeping your team awake? What are the next 2 years like? I think I know it's too long a time, right? I think in the current setting, but what are the next 2 years like?
Sure. So, to be honest, having this entrepreneurial background, I plan every single day or monthly or weekly. I project it like that.
Right.
So, the next 2 years is going to be like really challenging because of the scaling aspect, scalability
Mhm.
aspect of it. So, even if we talk to people, let's say investors, the first thing that comes to
Mhm.
their mind is the scalability of this particular model, right? So, proving to them that this actually works is going to be a challenging or a gruesome process from an entrepreneurial standpoint of view. From
Right.
operationally, it's not a big problem at all. It's not challenging at all. So
Right.
the next 2 years is all about scaling and reaching sectors or areas where Inspire has not yet reached. So it's
Right.
about creating brand awareness and being an authority in
Right.
this particular language learning and soft skills and an outcome at the end of the day. So you
Interesting.
join Inspira, you go through a journey, and after let's say 2 or 3 years, you come back to Inspira. So the journey is always continuing, evergreen.
Right.
So creating brand awareness and expanding and scaling this market to people who deserve this. It's 46 million people, and that maybe after 2 years
Mm.
it would be like 50 million or 55 million, God knows.
Right.
So reaching out to them and making them understand this is your perfect solution is a challenging process, but that's what the next 2 years would be. It's all about scaling and
Interesting.
of course developing and improving your quality and standard as well.
And how about fundraise, right? You've been a 100x VC portfolio company, right?
That's true.
What's your what's on the fundraise side of things? I mean, what is happening on that front?
Yeah, sure. So fundraising is actively happening. We
Right.
closed 100x VC, then we closed an angel round as well, a very small round because we are mostly getting lots of interest from the VCs because
Right.
of the kind of like the traction we have, the revenue we have in, and the kind of like the growth journey that we have.
Right.
So VCs they take their own sweet time to have the conversations taken
Yes.
forward,
Yes.
but the
Right.
conversations are happening very strong.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Right. This is my usually my last question, right? And I very firmly believe that founders for founders is a very it is something which is very significant and very strong and also very critical, right? Because what happens is when you have two people who are essentially in the same kind of a journey, right, and the same position, I think their word kind of matters to each other a lot, right? It can work as such a booster, right? So out of whatever experience that you've had, right, of building Inspire and otherwise, right, what is your one word of advice is cliched, right? But what's your one word, right? Or sorry, or one advice to many founders out there, right? What has made it work for you, right? That they could possibly look to imbibe in their own ways, in their own structures, in their own companies, right? What are possibly those, say, one or two things, right, that you think are very important when you're building it out?
Okay. Well, from my experience, my advice to all those people starting up or already started up something is
Right.
first thing definitely you need to have support.
Uh-huh.
I'm not talking about family or friends or family or anything of that sort. It's basically within the organization, especially your
Right.
co-founder, right? I was somebody who's got like support from my parents, but the entire friend circle and the family was totally against it. I mean, it
Right.
was like unusual for somebody of this age to start something new especially being a first generation entrepreneur.
Uh-huh.
It's very difficult.
Right.
So have somebody to support you in every aspect of it, and that is finding the right co-founder who
Right.
understands you, shares your vision, and fights with you throughout there, no matter what. So,
Mm-hmm.
as entrepreneurship is all about digging a hole and jumping into it, and then
Right.
trying to crawl up back to the surface, your co-founder should also be willing to do that along with you. If you have lived off with 10 rupees, you need to be willing to live off with 1 rupee and spend 9 rupees for your business.
Uh-huh.
And that's a kind of like way of life entrepreneurship.
Right.
So when you have that support coming from somebody who's with you almost like let's say 8 hours or in my case like 12 to 14 or maybe 24 hours,
Right.
uh, that is very much important for you. And you should split across the roles as well. Roles in the sense, it's not like, I do only the sales, you do only the operation. That's not what I'm talking about. Somebody
Right.
should be there to envision everything, the visionary, and somebody should be there to assist you in execution. So in
Uh-huh.
my case, I'm the visionary person. I dream a lot, whereas my co-founder executes it.
Right.
And when at the execution, that is reality and my aspiration, the dream. When it meets together, there is a spark, there is a fight happens always. And we solving a fight with one perfect solution is a secret sauce behind Inspira. So whatever we come up with after that hours of fight, I say that, okay, let's go to Middle East tomorrow. It's like, we don't have the money to do it. That's what my co-founder would say. No, we'll go there and we'll make money. Are you mad?
Interesting.
so, so that's the kind of like conversations we
Right.
have. Then we come together, okay, let's do it maybe after 5 months. If we achieve this particular target, can you agree? Let's go to Middle East. All right. If you achieve that, okay, then I'll agree to it. So we
Right.
have a consensus there, right? So that is important. The second one is you need to be extraordinarily clear in your vision, planning, and execution.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand. Being an entrepreneur, the windshield is always blurred,
Right.
and the rear view mirror is always clean. You
Right.
can always turn back, but you cannot see what is running ahead of you.
Right.
That is true, but you can always plan ahead and
Right.
execute according to your plans. And there should be a balance between emotion and whatever is happening there.
Right.
So, like I mentioned, being a dreamer or a visionary, the emotion is on the stronger side for me.
Mm-hmm.
But my co-founder balances it out. But
Interesting.
we execute and plans it out so well that every step, like you said, like I mentioned earlier, I know what is going to happen on July 20th of 2026 today because I've
Right.
planned it out so detailed.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might complain, okay, you're being too perfectionist. It's not about being perfectionist, it's about knowing what is going to happen in your future and you have a script to follow.
Right. Right.
So it's about that's the reason why VCs or investors ask you to prepare a projection plan, and they clearly know that it's not going to happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
just to know how well you think in detail about it. So definitely in my case, it's not definitely not happening according to what I planned 5 years back, but
Right.
it is going in the right direction. That's something that I'm very proud of. So these are the two basic advice. Find the best co-founder, and the second one, plan properly, execute. Take big risks, but logical risks.
Rohit, it was a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time out. I love the
You're
energy,
welcome.
and the fact, and I think there's tremendous maturity, right, in each and every bit of how you're looking at your business, right? The way you're kind of dissecting it, right? And the way you're prioritizing it, right? I mean, I've been across many conversations, right? And you typically what you tend to see is as a founder, right? So there is a sense of urgency, right, to go out and acquire many things, right? What happens is that your vision gets skewed in terms of being able to prioritize, right? Because you just want to do so much more, right? But I think that's something which completely stands out in your case, right? I think the way you're looking at the market, the way you've dissected it, I think the way you possibly try to create that sense of urgency, right? And the target customer that you're looking at, right? I think a lot of that is fairly well defined. It just brings in a very different sense of clarity, uh, right? And I think it just talks so much about you as a founder. It was a pleasure to have you with us, Rohit. Thank you so
Same
much for
here.
joining.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Loved it. Thank you.